Why are road lines white and yellow? Have you ever wondered why the lines that guide you on the road are painted in only two colors, white and yellow? It's one of those things so ordinary, so deeply ingrained in daily life, that most of us never question it. Every single day we drive over them, we follow them, and we rely on them with our very lives. Yet behind these simple stripes of paint lies a story of chaos, innovation, accidents, bizarre experiments, and surprising global decisions that forever changed how we move. Because once upon a time, roads had no lines at all. Imagine cars speeding toward each other on dusty, narrow paths, horse-drawn wagons mixing with early motor vehicles, everyone claiming their piece of the road in a dangerous dance of guesswork. It was the Wild West of transportation, and those simple white and yellow lines were born out of the desperate need to bring order to chaos. It is almost strange to think that something as thin as a line of paint could stand between safety and disaster. But that's exactly what road markings do. They're silent guardians, invisible until headlights catch them at night, reminding drivers where they belong. Yet how did we decide white and yellow of all colors? Why not red for danger or blue for clarity? Why not something bold like green or black? The answer lies buried in history, psychology, technology, and even war. This story is about much more than painted S, about how humanity learned to share the road without tearing itself apart. The story begins in the early 1900s. Cars were exploding in popularity, transforming from luxury toys for the wealthy to practical machines for ordinary families. By 1910, roads across America and Europe were choked with traffic. But road infrastructure hadn't caught up. Highways didn't exist, intersections were chaotic, and there were no standardized rules. In fact, early drivers had to rely on instinct, courtesy, and sheer luck to avoid collisions. The idea of separating lanes with paint simply didn't exist. Cars would speed side by side, jockeying for position like horses in a race, while pedestrians darted in and out, wagons trundled slowly, and bicycles tried to squeeze through. Accidents skyrocketed, and newspapers were filled with horrifying tales of wrecks. Then came one of the strangest origin stories you'll ever hear. Legend has it that in 1911, a man named Edward N. Heinzan, official in Wayne County, Michigan, was driving behind a milk wagon. The wagon was leaking milk, leaving a long white trail on the dusty road. Heinz watched in fascination. That simple white streak separated his car from oncoming traffic, giving him a sense of safety he had never felt before. And in that moment, inspiration struck. What if, he thought, we painted a permanent line down the center of the road to guide drivers? Later that year, Heinz oversaw the painting of the first official road line on River Road in Trenton, Michigan. It was white. And just like that, the world's first center line was born not from an engineer's blueprint, not from government policy, but from spilled milk. At first, many drivers laughed at the idea. A painted line seemed unnecessary, even silly. But quickly people noticed something remarkable. Accidents decreased. Drivers subconsciously respected the division. The line didn't physically block anyone, yet it changed behavior. It was psychology at work. Humans respond to boundaries, even symbolic ones. The success of that first line spread. By the 1920s, center lines were being painted on major roads across the United States. Other countries took notice too, and soon, the idea was spreading globally. But here's where the story takes a curious twist. While white was the default, it wasn't always the only color. In the 1920s and 30s, different states and countries experimented with different paints. Some tried yellow, others tried black on lighter roads. There was no standardization, and confusion reigned. Imagine crossing state lines, and suddenly the rules changed. The line that meant stay in your lane in one place might mean do not pass in another. Drivers were baffled. Accidents caused by misunderstanding the colors became so frequent that governments realized something had to be done. Standardization wasn't just convenient, it was a matter of life and death. But why white and yellow? The answer lies in visibility. White paint stood out clearly on dark asphalt and gravel roads, while yellow provided contrast against snow, fog, and low-light conditions. During World War II, visibility became even more critical. Roads had to be used by military vehicles day and night, in every weather condition. The U.S. government conducted studies and found that white and yellow were the most visible colors under headlights at night and in dim conditions. Red, while attention-grabbing, faded too quickly and was hard to see under weak headlights. Blue and green simply blended into the environment. White and yellow won by survival of the fittest, not because they were pretty, but because they worked. In the 1940s, the U.S. established the first uniform standards. White lines would separate lanes of traffic moving in the same direction. Yellow lines would separate opposing directions of travel. The logic was brilliant in its simplicity. White meant safety were among friends, traveling the same way. Yellow meant danger on the other side of that line. Cars were coming at you. It was intuitive, memorable, and life-saving. This standard spread globally after the war, becoming the language of the road we still speak today. But the history doesn't stop there. Road lines have continued to evolve with technology and society. For example, broken lines versus solid lines were introduced to indicate when it was safe to pass. Double yellow lines appeared to enforce stricter rules on busy highways. Reflective paints were developed to make lines visible at night. In snowy countries, engineers faced a new challenge: lines disappearing under blankets of snow. The solution: raised markers, metal studs, and even colored reflectors embedded in the road, creating a second layer of visibility. Each innovation added another layer of safety, but always with the same basic language: white and yellow. Yet the story also has bizarre chapters. Did you know that in the 1950s, some places experimented with glowing road lines made from radioactive paint? It sounds insane now, but at the time, scientists thought adding radium to paint would make it glow in the dark and improve night driving. Thankfully, this idea was abandoned when the dangers of radiation became clear. Other experiments included using cat's eye small glass reflectors embedded in the pavement, which reflected headlights back at drivers. Invented in Britain in 1934. They were inspired by the gleam of a cat's eyes in the dark and remain in use today. Again, the same principle. Humans needed guidance, and innovation found strange ways to provide it. Psychology plays a fascinating role in all of this. Road lines work not because they physically stop us, but because our brains are wired to follow visual cues. A simple painted stripe holds the power to control millions of tons of moving metal worldwide. Studies have shown that drivers instinctively align themselves with lane markings, often without conscious thought. That's why when lines are faded or missing, accident spike drivers feel disoriented, unsure of where they belong. The very existence of road lines taps into deep human instincts for order, boundaries, and trust in symbols. There's also an economic angle. The global road marking industry is massive, worth billions of dollars. Entire companies exist solely to manufacture special paints that can withstand heat, rain, snow, and millions of tires grinding over them. The cost of repainting road lines in a single city can run into millions annually. Yet governments continue to invest because the return in lives saved and accidents prevented is priceless. Those humble stripes of paint are among the most cost-effective safety measures ever invented. And the symbolism goes even further. White and yellow lines have seeped into culture, language, and even art. Think about it. Staying in your lane is now a metaphor for knowing your boundaries. The double yellow line is iconic, a visual shorthand for danger and discipline. Hollywood films often use long stretches of lonely road with a double yellow line cutting through the desert as a symbol of freedom, danger, or destiny. What started as spilled milk in Michigan became a cultural symbol recognized worldwide. But here's the twist that might blow your mind. In some parts of the world, the rules are completely different. In countries like the UK, India, and Australia, road line conventions vary. Some use white for both same direction and opposite direction traffic, relying on broken versus solid patterns to convey meaning. Others experiment with additional colors like red or green in bus lanes and bike lanes. The language of the road isn't entirely universal. It is more like dialects of the same language. Yet no matter where you go, white and yellow dominate as the backbone of global road systems. Looking into the future, road markings are evolving again. The rise of self-driving cars. Road lines are no longer just for humans, they must also be machine-readable. Autonomous vehicles use cameras and sensors to track lane markings. And researchers are experimenting with new paints infused with reflective materials, or even embedded microchips to communicate with cars directly. Imagine a road that doesn't just guide you visually, but sends signals to your car about speed limits, upcoming curves, or hazards. So once again, something as simple as a line of paint may be at the cutting edge of human innovation. And yet the humble white and yellow lines remain. They've survived over a century of change, countless experiments, and global expansion. They began with a milk spill and grew into a silent system that saves millions of lives each year. The next time you're driving at night, headlights illuminating the road ahead, take a moment to notice them, not just paint their history, psychology, engineering, and culture rolled into one. They're proof that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most powerful. Wow. So why are road lines white and yellow? Because through decades of trial, error, science, and even tragedy, those two colors prove themselves to be the clearest, the safest, and the most universal. They are the quiet guardians of our daily journeys, keeping us in line literally and metaphorically every mile of the way.